In the name of Allah, the Merciful and Compassionate, the doors are opened by none other than Allah. Praise be to Allah, the Eternal, who has always existed. He uses language as a test for His servants, making them speak through difficulties. In this process, some remain steadfast while others falter. Eternity is like a celestial ladder, a link between heaven and earth. Blessings and peace be upon those who prefer their Lord over their own desires, those who seek solitude. The Lord took one such servant during the night to the highest abode, dressing him in robes unique to odes and gazelles, assigning him as a messenger of beauty between himself and his Lord. Then descended a form, including that of Gabriel. As long as the stars in the sky descend to the earth, peace be upon him. Indeed, Allah has placed the word Ezel in the tongues of people, using it to describe Himself, saying, He is eternal. Information about this eternity existed in His own eternity, but most who utter it do not know its meaning. If questioned, their understanding would slip away like sand through fingers. Some debaters thought that this term Ezel relates to Allah as our concept of time relates to us. They say, as we exist in time, so does Allah exist in eternity. They claim that Allah spoke eternally, that in this eternity, He commanded Moses to remove his sandals and told Prophet Muhammad to worship until certainty comes. Another group imagines this concept as a void, akin to space without physical substance, a spiritual extension independent of time. However, Allah created the heavens, the earth, and everything between in 6 days, not in a measurable sense as we understand days, but in a period that would have been 6 days had days existed then. The creation of days relates to the rotation of celestial bodies, which existed before the heavens. Day and night are different, they are known within the day but are not the day itself. Thus, day and night came into being with the creation of the heavens and the earth, not with the creation of the day. Speaking of eternity as a measure of time or as a direction extending from a starting point is erroneous. If you say eternity is a being, it is either existence or non-existence. If non-existence, then it's a negation, which is a distasteful approach, as it would attribute non-existence to the Creator. If eternity is said to be a being, then it is either the Creator Himself or something else. If the Creator, then it is a misnomer, as the Creator has not used such a name for Himself. If eternity is something other than the Creator, it either exists by itself or by something else. If by itself, it contradicts the uniqueness of Allah. If by something else, then this other is either the Creator or not. If it is, then it becomes an attribute like knowledge or power, specifically attributed to Allah. If not, then it implies a coexistent with the Creator, which is impossible. Thus, the concept of eternity is a slippery ground for debaters, yet many are unaware of its intricacies. They should not neglect the truth and should use only the names and attributes for Allah as mentioned in His book and by His Prophet. Observe, brethren, how the word Ezel is aptly derived from its root, resembling the nature of certain animals that are inclined downwards and slippery, signifying something that does not stay in place, just as the concept of eternity is elusive and causes debaters to slip. Those who attain the mercy of their Lord are different. Therefore, because many have stumbled upon this ground, it has been named Ezel. Those who say that Almighty Allah spoke in eternity about such and such exhibit a gross misunderstanding. In saying this, they do not gain knowledge but only display their ignorance. In this context, what should be said is that eternity is an unformed, ancient attribute. In this branch of knowledge, the nature of things is inconceivable. Knowledge is only realized when it relates to perception. If something is seen, it is understood by seeing, if heard, by hearing, if smelled, by smelling. After being perceived, it becomes known. The same applies to other qualities. Once it is established that Allah possesses the attribute of speech and that it is not created, i.e., eternal, there is no need to look beyond eternity and the eternal to define it. Therefore, we say that Almighty Allah spoke to Moses after creating certain events. Moses then saw a fire, turned towards it, and during this time, Almighty Allah called out to him. Moses is bound by time, but the Almighty Creator cannot be characterized by time or moments. At this time, Almighty Allah spoke to Moses with his eternal speech, asking him to remove his sandals, among other things. Moses heard a speech that has no characteristic of being created or having a beginning, existing eternally in majesty and glory, in a speaking dimension, while he was in a listening dimension. No one can claim that Almighty Allah's speech was accompanied by temporal movement, for Moses, bound by time, has precedence over anyone who claims otherwise. Moses heard in a timeless manner because the speaker did not speak in time. It is more accurate to elevate Moses to a state of transcendence than to liken Almighty Allah to anything. As it is said, you became manifest after non-existence. Without it, you would not exist, for you killed it. Here, the servant is included in transcendence, for he has realized the secret with truth and is subject to the rule of transcendence, purified from the world of beings, witnessing what manifests from the Creator. Another says, I hid in the shadow of my grief from my time, while my eyes see my time does not see me. If asked what my days are, they do not know. Where is my place that they should know it? This person has entered into transcendence, rising above time, achieving more than the previous speaker, for while the former is transient, the latter says, while my eyes see my time does not see me. Indeed, the truth sees us, but we do not see it. Thus, the latter truly expresses the truth. Supporting this is the issue of seeing Almighty Allah. We do not doubt that some of us are in a different state regarding this than others. Just as Almighty Allah sees us today, we cannot describe His seeing us in terms of aspects, for He is beyond them. If the veils of our eyes were lifted, we would see Him without aspect, in His majesty and perfection. When we perceive Him, we are in a state relative to each other, but not relative to Him. The same applies to time, space, and all related phenomena. We are not in a state relative to ourselves, nor is the universe in a state relative to itself. After this explanation, we do not need to say that Almighty Allah spoke in eternity about something that would happen, or that He told Moses to remove his sandals. He said what would happen in time, and when the time came, it happened. All these are knowledge, not speech. There are such ugly and inappropriate statements about this that they are not hidden from those with sound minds. Regarding the concept of eternity, for them, it is a ruling of ancientness, implying the negation of anything preceding it. Thus, it is an accidental attribute, not a fundamental one. The matter is quite simple and obvious to the mind. The non-existence of knowledge before creation also clarifies our statements. Just as it is permissible for the universe to exist before time, beware of the interpretation that it means to designate a time for the universe's existence and delay it, which would require attributing a specific time to it. Therefore, their words about before and after time, and assigning times are misplaced, for designation involves what is inside it, and there is nothing besides Allah. Thus, in every respect, this assessment is contrary to the concept of speech. What should be said is that the Creator, the Maker, exists by Himself and does not derive His existence from anyone else. He is Subhanahu, Ahad. Unique, with nothing else besides Him. The universe exists with Him and derives its existence from Him. The universe is contingent by itself and necessary through another because it has acquired its existence from another. The Creator, however, is necessarily existent, not having acquired His existence from anything else. Moreover, non-existence is the same as nothingness. It is not an added, apparent thing, nor is existence an added, apparent phenomenon to what exists. Non-existence is the same as nothingness, and existence is the same as what exists. If existence were understood and the essence of what exists were not, then existence would not be the same as what exists but rather a state of its essences, not fully known or manifest. This applies to substance as well. When you say that something is a substance, you do not doubt that being something is part of its essence, but saying it is something does not convey any specific essence until we say it occupies space and is subject to accidents. The same applies to existence and non-existence, for there is no extension between truth and creation. The creation did not wait at certain times and then come into existence. All these are imaginary and passive delusions, rejected by every sound mind. Neither with respect to God nor in relation to creation is there any interval. In creation, the matter concerns not the attachment to a non-existent entity but something else entirely. After this explanation, we turn and say, in pre-eternity, was there anyone with Allah or not? A group from ancient times said there were 4 things: the Creator, reason, soul, and prime matter. Another group from ancient times declared there were 8 things: the essence and 7 attributes. Yet another group stated there was only one ancient, that is Almighty Allah. He is unique in every respect and is called Almighty due to his essence. All attributes used for him are similar. Another group, while holding the same view, added another meaning and called it the truth of truths. This truth is neither existent nor non-existent, neither created nor ancient. Instead, within creation, it is considered ancient and non-created, but it does not exist in and of itself, much like knowledge or speech. Thus, in pre-eternity, in terms of meaning, there was only one, negating any precedence of itself, uniquely one. For us too, in pre-eternity, a judgment in a way applies. We know that even without our present existence, we were known to Allah. In terms of existence, things have 4 levels: existence in knowledge, in objects, in speech, and in writing. According to this judgment, we have 2 levels of existence in pre-eternity, but we are not concerned with one of them now, which is our existence within his knowledge. If there is a debate, it was explained in previous parts of our book. Undoubtedly, in the literature of knowledge, extensive evaluations have been made regarding the concept of pre-eternity, leaving little need for further explanation. Let's now delve into the secrets of the term pre-eternity. If we dissect the composition of the letters forming the word pre-eternity, we see that each of these 3 letters has a place of rest, resulting in 3 places of rest. However, for us, the letter Lam is composed of 2 letters, making it 4 letters in total, similar to the word Allah. Thus, the existence of 2 Alephs and a Lam in the term relates to both the name and the attribute. When we say the Lam is composed of 2 letters, we refer to writing, for in writing, it consists of Aleph and light. When the long part of the Lam is bent over the circle of the gain, it forms a complete circle. This is the circle of creation, Kevn, and only half of it is apparent in the form of the letter Zay, in the shape of a Nun. In writing, it does not appear in the forms of Mim and Aleph, for Aleph and Mim, in terms of writing, are dedicated to the essence of Allah. Allah existed, and nothing was with him. Between Zay and Lam, there was a curtain of glory, the very curtain between Allah and his creation. That's why Zay, in form, appears as a Nun, but is slightly shorter. The reason is that the empty part of the gain, which is a Nun, only becomes visible and apparent for a moment. Therefore, Zay has not reached the perfection of a Nun because it is a curtain. Had it been perfect like Nun, there would be nothing to veil it, and the reality of the curtain would be nullified. However, the existence of the curtain is inevitable, so the appearance of Zay as it does is necessary. If there were no curtain, perhaps creation, Kevn, would be nullified. Hence, a protector is necessary. Without a protector, there is no creation. Almighty Allah draws our attention to being the protector of His creation, as stated in the verse of the Quran, and it is not difficult for Him to guard and preserve them. This word comes from the root hif, and hafiz, the protector, is the same. Thus, the length of the gain, comprising aleph, comes to the head of nun, and the empty part of the gain is also the shadow of the first aleph. So, creation is protected by a shadow. Therefore, its shadow appears in its form. It's as if it and its shadow were a metaphor for mercy. As we say, we are in the shadow of the decree. Almighty Allah has said, on the day of judgment, I will shelter those who love each other for my majesty under my shadow. When the first aleph is in the word, the grand aleph becomes distinct as Hamza, and the curtain of glory emanates from it. For when the grand aleph is there, the length of gain does not become a shadow, because aleph does not become a shadow in relation to Hamza. The reason is that its form is in another form. A condition for a shadow is form, hence why I say the shadow related to the throne is a shadow of mercy. Thus, mercy is one of the names of the throne. In this case, the length of gain is a protector due to command. As Almighty Allah has said, they guard it by the command of Allah, meaning they do so because Allah has commanded them. In another verse, He has said, He sends guardians for you. On the other hand, the universe consists of three levels, the upper, the lower, and the level between them. There is a fourth realm, the mobile and subjected spirits, whose stations are 28 in number. The names of these stations are as follows: the hidden, the ant, the Pleiades, the deer between the Pleiades and the constellation of Gemini, the rebellious, the sign of the snake, the hook in the constellation of Gemini, the shape of 3 stars like a hair leg, Zira, Nesra, Teraphan, Surf, and Ava, then Bach, Zabana, the crown, the heart, the beam, Naim, the city, Saad, Yuza, a fortunate, Bal, Saut, Muqaddam, Farouk, Muahar. These stations differ by 1, 2, or 3 debts. Thus, the stations are separated by their debts. The spirits given control of the universe by Allah are 7: Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, the Sun, Venus, Mercury, and the Moon. By moving these planets through these stations, Almighty Allah has connected the influences in the said universes. Accordingly, the totality of the worlds is 38, and the numerical value of the word Ezel, pre-eternity, is also 38. Thus, the universe manifests numerically in the form of Ezel. Ezel is also one of the attributes of Almighty Allah, so it is of His form. Allah created Adam in His own image and the universe in the image of Adam. This way, everything is interconnected. Consequently, the 4 most noble stations become apparent: the family, human, Ezel, and Allah. This reveals our clear and evident divine knowledge. There is also an incredible subtlety in the concept of Ezel. When the universe emerged with the claim of manifestation, the truth suppressed it with its pre-eternity. Thus, a trace for created beings remained. Ezel became distinct. It is the Aleph in the word Ezel, representing the universe's manifestation. It's as if someone asked about the universes, and it was revealed through the appearance of the Aleph of the essence. Particularly because of the sought singularity in Ezel, it is specifically Aleph. Be aware that the secret of Ezan, the call to prayer, and the spirit that forms the basis of the existence of Ezel are the same. This also applies to concepts like ancientness, precedence, subsequentness, apparentness, and hiddenness, which are like the partners of Ezel. That is, if I did not exist, none of these would exist. If these qualities are mine, then I am not there. Here are the distinguishing points between the secrets of qualities and the secrets of names and attributes. Names are ascribed to Allah, abstracted from meaning, not attributed to individuals. If they were, when attributed to any individual other than in goodness, these qualities would become manifestly distant. Dear friends, if a name is coincidentally found in the called, musamma, it does not mean that the naming intends this meaning in the called. The main purpose of naming is to differentiate one called from another. While a name might coincidentally indicate this meaning and the called might deserve this name, this is definitely not the intention of the namer. Some names indicate a genus, like Jesus, angel, animal, and horse, while others indicate specific individuals or objects, like Zaid, Jafar, and this tree. Attributes, however, are used for meanings found in the subject. For example, alim, knowledgeable, is a name used for someone possessing the attribute of knowledge. This is the attribute of the person, not their name. Their name might be Ali, Zaid, or Khalid, specifically indicating their object. If the name alim were given initially, like the names Zaid and Ali, it would not mean the namer intended to create the attribute of knowledge or that the person must know something because they are a speaking animal. If it were so, it would then be an attribute, not a name. We could name a stone or a tree alim, but this does not mean the stone or tree accepts the attribute of knowledge or possesses such an attribute. When someone names it thus, it is not a real name but rather attributing a quality. The same applies to all names indicating a meaning found in the called. Such a name is in fact an attribute, with the called being the qualified. The purpose is to characterize the subject and object in the context of this attribute, not in the essence. This is the difference between a name and an attribute. Similarly, the proper names of Almighty Allah should solely indicate His essence, like Allah and the like. These names should not be derived from other things. According to the theologians, this is also the case. The word Allah has been called the greatest name because it is not limited by any meaning found in His essence or any ruling related to His essence. Instead, it directly indicates His very essence. This is different from the name Qadir, Almighty. The name Qadir in the called refers to a meaning or attribute known as power or, in line with the view, indicates a ruling in the essence. The same applies to the names Hay, living, Murid, willing, Sami, hearing, Basir, seeing, Kareem, generous, and Rahim, merciful. Hence, Almighty Allah has said, "The most beautiful names belong to Allah." Quran 7:180. The reason for this statement is to ensure that the listener does not confuse Allah's names with other names or perceive them at the level of other names. Since Allah is unseen, when His names are mentioned to the listener, they should be able to distinguish them from others. Regarding beings, due to the comparison we pointed out, a situation of commonality in names has emerged. This has led to the elimination of the purpose of distinguishing with the name. Therefore, the use of these and similar attributes and metaphors becomes necessary. Almighty Allah does not share any aspect and there is no other deity besides Him, nor would it be right to say so. His most beautiful names are termed attributes because they are related to rulings or meanings with Him. Undoubtedly, these names are much better for us than those names that specifically require an object. When thinking of Allah's beautiful names, it is important to consider whether it is His speech or ours. If you mean the names He has called Himself in His speech, there is nothing corresponding to them, and He is not named through something additional to His essence. But if you mean the names He has used for Himself through revelations, expressions, and words in the revealed books in our existence, then it is necessary that these have the best qualities. We have no doubt that his names are eternal, originating from his being the speaker, because they fall within the scope of the rulings of speech. Names require extensive discussion, which we will address separately. Regarding the differences between qualities and names and attributes, qualities are words that indicate a meaning existing with the essence of the qualified. They are not names. Qualities are words indicating the essence from the perspective of relativity. Thus, we also call them relative names, like first, Evel, for it is necessary to reject the firstness from Allah. If we characterize him with goodness, then our existence becomes inevitable, just as his being ancient is contrary to our being created later. For Almighty Allah is the absolute being with no beginning or end. He is the real one, and so is eternity. Describing Allah as eternal is related to our concept of time. Our saying, Allah existed, and nothing was with him, arises from our conception of a temporal extension in this context. It is a situation related to the existence of our objects, nothing else. The same applies to his being apparent, Zahir, and hidden, Batin. The hidden is more complete as a quality because it is impossible for him to be hidden in himself. These names are also used in our world, but according to the theologians, they are not qualities, names, or attributes. Thus, Ezel is also a quality, like Kadim and similar names and attributes, not just any attribute. By providing this explanation of the concept of Ezel, we have offered a satisfactory explanation for those with a pure heart. Undoubtedly, this explanation is convincing for them. Praise be to Allah, the Lord of the worlds, the sole possessor of absolute knowledge.